Fingers crossed we don't have any more technical issues. All right, so I suppose, maybe we could get... Yeah, we've kind of already started at this stage. We've been on the call for, what, like 5 minutes?
My clip's going from like a minute ago. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's fine. I suppose, what have we all been up to this week? I know, Garrett, you probably had a really busy week. Same with you, Cameron, actually, I suppose. You've been on podcasts galore as well. But I suppose we'll start with Garrett so we can kind of get like the big meaty chunk out of the way. What have you been up to, Garrett?
I've just been working on something called the Unnamed Xbox Project. Just been working on that profusely day and night, getting the perfect team together. That way, when we launch it, we have content creators from all over the globe with all sorts of skill sets, from writers, editors, YouTubers, streamers, podcasters, and social media managers. That way, when we go to launch the Unnamed Xbox Project, as the very named project, which will be revealed here soon, here within the next couple weeks, we have everyone in place to provide solid content and entertainment for the Xbox and gaming community as a whole. So I've been working on that. Lots of recruiting, lots of meetings, lots of late night Discord calls, early morning Discord calls, and Zoom meetings. Has basically been my past 3 weeks now.
I think it sounds exciting anyways. I think Cameron nearly passed out dying on my camera anyways when you started speaking. So he obviously was very excited by the proposition as well.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think a lot of people are excited. I just hope we can live up to the expectations that we've set for ourselves with the community. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes at launch, but I think it's going to be a really impactful event for the Xbox community when it does happen.
Yeah. The thing actually we always hear as well about like people in the games industry, whether it's devs, journalists and whatnot, is that they never have like, I suppose, time to play games most of the time because they're just so busy running everything. Have you been playing anything this week?
No, the last 3 weeks is the least amount of game playing I've ever done since I was probably 5 years old. I mean, other than being grounded when I was a kid, there was, month periods of time where I wasn't even allowed to hold my Xbox controller when I was a kid. That said, besides that, this is the least amount of time I've spent playing Xbox or video games in general, pretty much my whole life, because of how busy we've been starting a company that has to do with video games. So it's very ironic, to say the least.
Yeah. Cameron, what have you been up to? Similar sort of stuff? You setting up any of your own projects, Cameron? But you got to follow up to
that. Just, I guess, doing the template for what we're going to be working on, me and Matt. Just trying to develop as much of a structure as possible of that. A lot of early mornings / late nights for E3. I mean, the Sunday of, I think I got 2 hours sleep then. This is nowhere like trying to be in competition to Garrett, but I haven't done the no sleep in quite a while. Then I did the showcase the other night when they had the extended one on. Just streaming at 3 AM in the morning is a bit different.
Did you think it was worth it, getting up 3 AM for that?
There was quite a few bits in it that I liked. That I was excited about. I always screw up the name, but the Anacrusis.
Oh, yeah.
Anacrusis, so that one looks really good.
No, it looks super good. Like I had just tweeted right before, it was the last tweet I put out before I hopped on this episode with you guys today. But that game, I'm almost surprised that when they showed the Anacrusis for the first time and they had one of the developers on the Xbox games showcase extended, that they didn't mention that it pulled inspiration from Left 4 Dead, because it is so similar to Left 4 Dead. They even joked around and did an Easter egg in the trailer where one of the in-game characters said, "Oh, let's call that one a tank," and then they're like, "Oh no, let's call it a brute." and it literally looked like a tank from Left 4 Dead. But then the developers said nothing about it while being interviewed, which I found odd because that's why that Easter egg was in the trailer like that, was to be a subtle shout out for Left 4 Dead. But yeah, no, it pulls a lot of inspiration from Left 4 Dead, which a lot of people know is one of my favorite franchises, which is why Back 4 Blood's one of my most anticipated games of this year. So
yeah, I think it's absolutely hilarious as well that like we've gone 10 years without a Left 4 Dead title, and now in 1 year alone, literally right next to each other, two very games that draw direct inspiration from it are going to be releasing in Back 4 Blood and Anacrusis.
I know that was so weird when I saw the Anacrusis, because I was right before I hopped in this call, as I was playing around on Twitter, I was rewatching the showcase extended by Xbox. And I was just I thought the same thing. I was like, oh my God, we haven't had a Left 4 Dead like game besides Vermintide and Vermintide 2 since about 2010. So it's crazy that two are releasing around the same time period.
Yeah. Do you think we're seeing like a little bit of a, I suppose, renaissance of like, I suppose, horde shooters, because there's a lot of like, I suppose Rainbow Sixes is aliens, like, but it's like, it's pretty much zombies at that stage. Like, do you think we're seeing this sort of resurgence in those types of games maybe?
Sure hope so, man. Because you go ahead, Cam.
I was gonna say, yeah, I feel like we're getting quite a few lately. Like, it just feels like there was such a drought of them for so long.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm just not playing the right co-op experiences.
I mean, particularly, I remember the last one I really enjoyed was World War Z. Now that had its own problems with like server issues and everything. I remember, like, particularly if you poor internet, but in a solo player or even a couch co-op situation, it was really fun. I
was surprised with that. That one's getting a sequel.
Yeah, no, I think it was really highly underrated, I think, at launch, and I think it obviously has that unfortunate thing of being like, I think people either love or hate that movie as well, because it's so different from the book as well. It's like one of those weird little sort of things. It's like where it's not so different enough that everyone hates it, and it's not so different enough that everyone loves it. It's kind of in this weird sort of limbo of like, people don't really know how to feel about it. And I think particularly when it comes to like, I suppose horde shooters, they've only ever really been dominated by like, you'll have maybe one sort of classic Left 4 Dead style game come out that probably won't do very well, and then the other way in which people sort of, I suppose, quench their thirst for that genre is like through Call of Duty Zombies, which is an unreal sort of set of things. But I think it's been changing and getting different, and some people have had bad years with it, and a bad year for that franchise is actually detrimental, I think, as well, because it like really shows its flaws and inaccuracies, and then it drives so many people away. I don't think we've seen sort of hype around that sort of Call of Duty zombie stuff since like Black Ops 3 maybe, and that was in like 2015, so I don't know. Yeah, go on.
I agree that I think I know we're currently experiencing it, as you would put it, a renaissance of the horde shooter again with Anacrusis and Back 4 Blood. I mean, Back 4 Blood, and maybe I'm missing something, but I mean, they basically invented the franchise was Turtle Rock Studios with the original Left 4 Dead in cooperation with Valve. And there was no game that had taken it to that level with that much with that level of expertise and execution until, what was it, 2008, 2009? I think they released them back to back, which means it would have came out in 2009, the original Left 4 Dead. I mean, that was the best that it ever had been done up to that point. They really set the standard for it, and any game that's like even somewhat related to Valve just ends up setting a standard in its industry. And I know Valve had a heavy hand in that whole situation, and you can tell obviously it was built in the Source engine, which at the time, and it still holds up to today's standards, but back then it was dominating for some really good games like Team Fortress 2, Left 4 Dead, obviously the Half-Life franchise, etc.
Yeah, no, I think I even still go back and play Left 4 Dead 2 every now and then, because I think particularly on PC, it's still so heavily optimized for people to go back and play. I think, yeah, there hasn't been anything that's kind of quite scratched that itch. And I don't know if I'm fully sold on Back 4 Blood yet. Maybe it's just because I've sort of this like really big nostalgia for the old Left 4 Dead games that like seeing it too polished almost kind of turns me off a little bit. But I don't know. It'll be definitely good to see, and plus it's coming to Game Pass, so I will end up eventually going at it some stage.
No reason not to. Yeah, Game Pass. Did you ever try Vermintide or Vermintide 2?
I think it was free with Games with Gold at one point, and I got it through that. But I never fully played it because I didn't have enough. I don't think anyone was willing to like squat up at me at one stage, which I think speaks volumes about myself. But we were. I had attempted to play it at one stage, yeah, but yeah, no, it never really sort of hooked me, I suppose. Maybe it's the setting as well. I've never been a huge fan of fantasy. I suppose it's not really my sort of genre. Like, I tried, like, this is going to sound dreadful, but I'm not the hugest fan of, like, Elder Scrolls, Skyrim sort of stuff.
Wow.
If I had to pick Bethesda stuff.
How to hang up a Discord call.
I knew I was going to annoy you with that as well, but I think Bethesda's sort of mainline entries for me that I've enjoyed have been Fallout, and even still I don't heavily dive deep into them. I'm more of a Mass Effect guy, very much sci-fi elements. I think same with movies as well. I love Star Wars and like Indiana Jones, but I've never seen Lord of the Rings, and I've no intention of ever really wanting to watch it. Yeah, I am really annoying people right now, but yeah, no, I will probably give it a go at some time. I know people have always been telling me to try the like Warhammer games because they're meant to be like, some of them are absolute gems, I've heard. So
they are.
Yeah, I'll give them a go at some stage.
When you put out that many games, Games Workshop, they'll put out, what have they put out, like 100 million games so far? So, they put out a lot of games. You're guaranteed to get at least some gems out of there. And Vermintide and Vermintide 2 especially are two solid gems. But yeah, the setting of that one, not because it's fantasy, but because of how dark and droll and colorless, and how it's quite literally filled with rats instead of zombies, that turned me off. The first time I tried playing it, I set it down for a whole year, then I picked it back up, then I beat the game 20 times over. So did all the campaigns, played it on all the difficulties, grinded it out with a couple of friends. I had to use Looking for Game to find people on Xbox because it doesn't have a huge active community. That said, it was worth it. But honestly, when we're this close to Back for Blood, I don't see much of a reason to dive in right now for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think particularly I'm getting very interested in like, what would we describe, the horror shooter style genre, particularly. I know there's a lot. It's kind of made a resurgence, I think, recently in the indie scene, which is even better to see. Like Dread XP do their Dread X Collections, which is like a 10-night game jam of 10 developers all coming together to design a horror game around a specific theme, which is really fun. And anyone who has a PC should check it out. I think you can get like each collection for about €5 or whatnot. Yeah, no, but what was the other one I'm thinking of? Yeah, I played Resident Evil 8 as well recently, and I really enjoyed that. I know there's like, that has a mixed bag of opinions as well, as every RE game does, so I don't expect it to be any different. Speaking of mixed bag of games and varying opinions, I think we should probably get on to today's topic, which is Halo 3. Kind of, I suppose, for a lot of people, the gold standard of Halo games. I should also note as well, we're about 20 minutes in. I should note this is the Unofficial Game Pass podcast. I'm your host, Odhrán Johnson. And each week we look at a game on Game Pass. We take it out for a week or longer in Yakuza's case, which I hope we never have to return to something that long ever again. And give it a look, give our opinions, whether we think it's worth downloading or not. I am, as you can see, not joined by Connor this week because he is away having a active social life, unlike myself. And I am joined by instead, arguably, and he's not going to like me say this, arguably two better hosts, in the form of Garrett Atkins, founder of the Unnamed Xbox Project, and Cameron. Do I say your surname right? Is it Hyland?
Hyland.
Hyland, okay. Perfect. Cameron Hyland, who is obviously one of the co-hosts of the Real Gamerscore podcast. I think we've got a bit of an introduction, but Halo 3, guys, what are your thoughts on it? I know you're a big fan of Halo, Garrett. Maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, Halo 3, as you said, a lot of people hold it to be the gold standard. I used to be that way, and I still am in some regards. I think Halo 5's multiplayer, besides the jetpacking around, I think Halo 5's the gold standard for multiplayer right now, and I'm sure Infinite will replace it in that regard. That said, in nostalgic terms, Halo 3 is definitely the gold standard of Halo. I still enjoy playing Halo 3 multiplayer more than I enjoy playing Halo 5 multiplayer. I far more often get on Master Chief Collection and play Halo 3 multiplayer with my friends, or even randoms or solo solo queue it. Then I do get on Halo 5 and play Halo 5 multiplayer. In fact, I think it's been over a year since I played Halo 5, maybe 2 multiplayer or campaign. But Halo 3, I play at least once every month, once every 2 months, and then sometimes I'll go on tangents where I play it for 6 months straight and dump a few hundred hours into it. So it really just depends on my mood. That said, but yeah, Halo 3 is definitely the gold standard in many ways for me. And the campaign, yeah, I mean, Halo 4, in my opinion, I didn't like Halo 4. I didn't like Halo 5 campaign. I just didn't. I like the original trilogy saga. Call me the old man yelling from his porch about it. But I mean, that's just how I feel, and my opinions aren't going to change on that. I really do think Halo Infinite's going to switch the tune of that for me, though, and I'm really looking forward to it. Whether it's a graphical masterpiece or not really won't decide it for me. Of course, having good graphics is something I enjoy very much so, but I think that the story and the gameplay of Halo Infinite's looking very Metroid Prime-ish. But I digress. Halo 3, yes, gold standard campaign and multiplayer wise. I mean, it still does have the best and most memorable maps of any Halo multiplayer game out there, in my opinion. But that's what I got for now. What about you, Cam?
Pretty much the same thing. I consider Halo 3 to be the golden standard. I don't know if it's just because of my nostalgia, because the first console I ever bought myself after getting a job at 15 was an Xbox 360 that included a pack with Halo 3, I think Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and something else.
Strange pairing.
And yes, really strange pairing. I think it was like one of the old OG Y consoles and 3 or 4 games. But that was after, I think Dad had taken me to deliver firewood to somebody's place. And the kid there at the time was playing Halo 3 and showed me it out. And I was just like, this is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
I've grown up on GameCube and PS2. I want to get one of these. One of these consoles and play it, because this seems like the future of gaming.
Yeah.
I used to have it in an old tag. I think I completed this story just back then. I was just playing through on easy. Recently completed the whole game on the 6th of April this year in terms of Legendary. I'm not massively a fan of the multiplayer just because I don't really have that nostalgia there. I grew up on a farm with dial-up connection. I'm not going to get any multiplayer in that. And I don't think it had bots or anything. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. So it was essentially campaign and that was it.
Yeah, no Halos had any bots. That's a big thing about Halo Infinite. That's going to change, though.
Be crazy.
I think actually the whole bots thing is a really interesting topic of discussion, because I really like the addition of them, because I remember especially when I was growing up, I used to live in the west of Ireland. I'm now living in Dublin, which has better Wi-Fi, but as you can all tell, my Wi-Fi isn't great anyways, so it's not saying much. And like, I remember the only thing that really turned me off Halo for a while was the fact that I could either play campaign or nothing. And then, like, I think at a similar time, because I got my Xbox quite late, I think I got it in 2012, I got the 360 Slim. That was my first introduction to Xbox, which was really poor timing because the One came out next year. But when and then I didn't get the One until like 2017, so I was really behind the times. I had to catch up. But for the sake of, like, when I got my first Xbox, my first initial playing of Halo was in Reach. Because it had come out at that stage, obviously. But my first game I got on my Xbox was Halo 3 paired with like Lego Batman, which I think are like the gold standard for Xbox 360 games anyways. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're unreal. But when I first played Halo 3, what was it? Yeah, it's similar enough. Black Ops had come out in 2010 at that stage, and it had bots in its multiplayer. So whenever I'd be like at home, what are you going to do? You're going to walk around the Halo 3 maps on your own, or are you going to play against bots and like multiplayer? And I think that's what really kind of, I suppose, drew me away from Halo for a little bit. I think it's one of the better games. I can't stand Call of Duty now. I still get it every year, like if it's on sale or something, but it's just, I think it's just such a vastly different like system to what it was. I think Modern Warfare I kind of enjoyed, but like outside of that, like Black Ops Cold War now, and Black Ops 4 specifically, oh my god, trying to play that was like such a hellscape of just like colors just blasted in your face.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode worth of talking if you want to get into Call of Duty.
Oh yeah. But yeah, no, Halo 3, I have particular fond memories of, particularly the campaign. I think, I don't think I beat the campaign for years. I think I got Halo and I was more hyped to play Halo than actually to play Halo, which is really weird because I feel like that's the case with a lot of stuff. I remember even before I got an Xbox, like, I was watching videos on YouTube about Halo. I was, like, drawing, like, Halo characters, whatever. This was when I was, like, 11, 12 or whatever. And then when I got the Xbox, I played like one campaign mission, and then I was like, that was pretty fun. I got to put it away. And I look back at that now, and I'm like, no, you're such an idiot, Odhrán. Like, play the fucking thing. But no, I've revisited it on multiple occasions, and I think 3 is always the one I like coming back to. I think it has the most accessible level design out of the Halo games, or at least it's the most fun to come back to. Like CE can be enjoyable, like if you play. I always go back to CE and I'm like, okay, I'm going to play through the CE campaign, and then I stop playing after Halo, the second mission, and that's only because it's like Halo's so long and the stuff you do is so repetitive, and then you get to the library and you're just like, oh, I could just play Halo 2 or 3 at this stage.
Because you're playing in Halo MCC, the question I want to ask you about CE is, are you playing in Classic or Anniversary?
For CE, I play Classic. For 2, I play Anniversary. Because I think CE holds up better in Classic than it does with the remaster. I really like the gritty sort of blocky style to CE, whereas 2 just looks like 2 is pretty much CE just bigger, isn't it? And like I think CE works really well because it's so condensed and so small that you don't really notice the imperfections. Whereas when you go to 2 and everything's pushed out, like buildings are just literally just grey slabs, and you're like, I might as well play on remastered at this stage.
The problem I have with CE is basically the level design, especially like midway through the game, is really bad. Yeah,
I think that's the one thing that sometimes I'll switch over to the remaster if like, because you know they add those little lights to follow, and I'm just like, I'll switch over for a second to see that. It's a complete break in immersion, like, but you know, you kind of it's the lesser evil. I think for ages what's the mission I'm thinking of? 343 Guilty Spark, I think, is the one where you first meet the Flood, isn't it?
Yeah, is that the one outside? Because if so, then yeah.
Yeah, the one you go into the bunker and you find Jenkins or whatever, and you first realize that the Flood are a thing.
It starts in the jungle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first level you see the Flood.
Yeah, I remember getting lost in like that interior area for so long because obviously a lot of CE is just repurposed assets. Like hallways are the same, corridors are the same, and you're just like, what do I do? I don't think anyone knows how to find the escape pod at the end of the first mission still. I feel like that's just because they did a good thing in the fact that if you just spend too long looking for it, they'll just teleport you there. But like, I don't think I've ever actually gotten to the escape pod like playing CE.
With CE, and I know we're meant to be talking about Halo 3, but basically the first 2 levels I think are like perfection in terms of early Halo. When you get to Truth and Wreck, that's when I'm just like, all right, I need a map. I need anything. Up until I think the last level's the Mall?
Yeah.
Just that whole section of the game in between the Mall and Truth and Wreck. It's just like, give me a map. I've got no idea where I'm walking. And it's only like after 6 or 7 playthroughs where I've actually, like on Legendary, that I've actually started to get a clue where I'm into heading in certain directions. But 2 and 3 seem much more corridor.
Yeah, I think you see their level design become a lot more refined by the time they get to Halo 3. I think it's perfected then. I think 3 ODST also does a really good job at level progression as well. But particularly in 3, and I say that because it shows how vast the sandbox is for Halo 3, and everyone, whenever they talk about Halo 3, like, sandbox is key in that game. Like, they have like probably some of the most iconic vehicles, weapons, equipment, and whatnot. And when you look at, say, like, one mission that always sticks to mind, it's the one I always go back to, is the Covenant mission, which is the one where you land on, like, this beach at the beginning with a Spartan laser. And there's, like, the 2 turrets and the anti-air wraith you have to take out before you then move on to going in to, like, shut down the beacons to build this new Halo ring. And, like, throughout that entire mission, you go from the beach to an underground area in a Forerunner facility. You then go into the sky flying a Hornet. You then take out wraiths in that Hornet. You land. You then come out in a tank. You then fight another Scarab. And then later on that mission, you fight 2 Scarabs again. So it's such a, like, there's so much going on in that mission. And it's like, I think it's condensed into about 20 to 25 minutes. But to me, that mission in particular is like everything that Halo encapsulates. Like, it's got the fun vehicles, weapons, sandbox, enemy AI, everything. You get to experience everything in that one mission. Like, I don't know, do you guys have particular missions that you look back on fondly in Halo 3?
I have to think about that for a second. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that mission. It really does encapsulate everything that Halo stands for in regards to its sandbox techniques with level design and weapons and vehicles and enemy NPC / AI. I mean, the first. Well, we're talking about Halo 3, not Halo CEs.
I mean, feel free to call back if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, the first, I remember the feeling of just stepping out of your escape pod on the very first Halo and then being like, holy cow, like this is something we haven't played before. Because at the time it was way ahead of its time for almost a whole decade after it came out. So until 2007, really, when other first person shooters really started performing well. But let's talk, I mean, well, one thing that I do remember really good about Halo 3 was just the year 2007 and being in the multiplayer lobbies and then seeing 500,000 people online. You remember when it used to tell you how many people were online right above the multiplayer menu?
Well,
so
I
back
mean, Cameron
when it
and
first...
I didn't have good internet, so I don't know if we can nostalgia for that.
Okay. Well, then the audience will know what I'm talking about, and they're probably going to be like, "Oh my God, yeah, I forgot about that." But when you played Halo 3 multiplayer online, right above, like right in the start menu for the multiplayer section, it would show you a live count of everyone that was online, and that Christmas of 2007 and pretty much all the way through 2008 or 9, you would commonly see over 500,000, at one point 1 million people online at one time playing the same game, and it would show you a map of the globe and where they were online. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in video games. I wonder why other games, especially like Call of Duty, where you know their player counts ridiculously high on a consistent basis, why they don't have that. So
I think Black Ops did have that.
There was
That's
actually,
the one I can think.
Black Ops has a really fun story about it, actually, because they still have that today, but it's obviously glitched out or something. So whenever you go into the original Black Ops, it still says like 800,000 people are playing, and it's like, no, they're not. Like, don't lie to me. Like, as if
I get like 25,000 because I think I finished the game off last year.
Yeah,
there's still quite a bit of active.
I could believe that there's 20,000 people still playing Black Ops because it is such a fun game, but not 800,000.
We could talk about how backwards compatibility breathes new life into these old games like that, but Halo MCC is a completely different beast.
Yeah.
Oh, Halo MCC is the gold standard for bringing back a collection. It went from being like the opposite. It used to be the worst thing that ever happened to remasters and collections on the face of the planet, but they dumped so much time and love into it. Obviously, they could not afford, Microsoft couldn't afford at the time, and it probably still can't, for Halo to just go by the wayside. So they put every resource possible into bringing that collection back to real life. And that's really what brought Halo 3 back into my life, was that collection, because then you have a huge player count of new players back in Halo again. They rolled it out on PC, and you're like, holy cow, now I'm getting crapped on by PC kids while I'm playing on controller. That's a whole nother problem, but I'm glad they're there to crap on me. So I appreciate them and their ability to do that and ruin my day. So
yeah.
With that, are you aware of what the lasso achievements are?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I'll tell you exactly what they are. There's something I'll never have. That's what they are.
I think, yeah. I don't know what they are. But
I'm not going to turn this into a flex.
you have the
legendary. I sound like you are.
I was going to say legendary All Skulls On. Just going back to this. So yeah, Lasso stands for Legendary All Skulls On, which are some of the hardest achievements in the Master Chief Collection, just because the Halo community is absolutely crazy. But saying that, when the collection originally came out, I started like attempting some of the glitches in that for him. CE, going through that final level, I think 10 to 12 times, getting up to the elevator every single time after, spending hours on an attempt, and then getting booted back to the menu was the absolute worst.
So instead of talking about the good memories in Halo, we are talking about the worst memories in Halo.
Come on, Cameron.
I've got good memories as well.
Should have known it was going to be a bad memory when you brought up Lasso.
Look, I have the achievement. That's the good memory.
Okay.
Through perseverance, I got there in the end. That's
which is probably the best feeling in the world, no doubt.
After everything stacked against you. But in terms of the level achievements, it's funny. With Halo, I always find that the first level and the last level are the absolute best.
I don't really like Sierra 117, I don't think.
I
think it's probably because
it might just be the
level of Halo 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Arrival's a cutscene, and then Sierra 117's the first playable level. But with that, like, there's just so many fun Easter eggs. Like, for example, when the Chief's crashing from space, he shows up at exactly 1 minute and 17 seconds. Like little Easter eggs like that are just tied into it. And then just going with, I believe the last level is called Halo? Halo 3?
I believe so, but I'm not positive.
I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and say it is. There is one achievement that I love coming back to, even though I've got it called Annual. And essentially that's playing through on Legendary. After you have the... Are we doing spoilers?
Oh, yeah. Halo 3 has been out for years.
I don't know. After having a confrontation with Guilty Spark and leaving Johnson behind, you can go down the left-hand side and get ghosts. So the achievements essentially, I think Iron Skull and something else. Iron Skull, if anybody dies, it resets the last checkpoint. So 4 players doing the driving section at the very end.
Is it not monkeys?
No, I think it's Ghost. The Ghost,
it's like you go to where his warthog is, and then immediately as you get onto the track at the left, there's like a mongoose, and you have to like.
There's mongoose. Is pretty much when you exit out of the Forerunner structure. If you go down left on the side that you originally came up, there'll be ghosts in a little pigeonhole. So each of you get a ghost. You go over to where the warthogs or the mongoose or whatever the proper vehicles are, and then essentially you're running the end of the mission, trying to escape before everything goes haywire, and just doing that 4 players, Iron Skull, so if one of you dies, it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
Because that's what Halo is to me. It's co-op. It's that experience. Like, I'm running through one of my friends through it at the moment on Legendary difficulty, and it's just he just doesn't have that confidence in himself, and I'm just like, no, it's fine. Just plasma pistol, magnum, or battle rifle, or whatever. We'll get through this.
Yeah. The what is it? Yeah, I think co-op is definitely a key function of Halo 3 because it's obviously the first Halo game to have 4-player co-op. The others before that only had 2. And they actually, I don't know, this is a little nod. I like the lore implications they have for if you have 4 players. So, like, obviously you've got the Arbiter, and then you've got these 2 other elites, who I think are expanded on in the books. I know Hunters of the Dark has both of those 2 Halo 3 elites in it. Because you go back to the Ark in that book. Wow, I'm really starting to sound like a nerd at this stage, but no, I do.
I'm just kind of smile away.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of a nice little thing to have. Like, obviously, you put in this very core gameplay mechanic that you'd expect in a Halo game now, but it's nice that it is someone else. Like, it's not just like a copy of the Chief. I think, and particularly when it gives you different weapons as well and whatnot, it feels that even a bit more. Because when you go back to play a mission, then it feels like you're experiencing it in a different sort of light, I suppose.
Does the lore in the books cover what happened to Dust and Echoes?
No, I am not. You're asking the wrong guy here. I've read like 2 of the books in the Halo series, and that's about it. Like,
you know the joke with that, yeah.
I don't particularly.
The end of the Halo series, Cortana to Chief is just like, it's just Dust and Echoes out there. So, of course, the Halo community.
It's such a typical Halo joke. Like, it's something like I'd expect from like YouTube in like 2005 with like I suppose a Doge dog and like a troll face on it. Like,
100% at it.
Oh no, yeah. 3 though is really interesting to me all the time because everyone always comes back to it as like this is what Halo really is. And then it's kind of, it's interesting then that you look at maybe the core player base for Halo comes from like probably 3, there's probably some from CE, Reach, and 5. I think 4 and 2 are kind of like placeholder games that nobody's like, oh yeah, my first experience with Halo was Halo 4 or Halo 2. And if they are, then I feel like they're more open to like different variations of Halo. But like when you look at like, I suppose the core fan bases for like Halo games, like the ones that are, I suppose, ultra zealous in some fact, will be like the Halo 3 CE and Reach kids, I think.
I agree with that.
Yeah. It's always interesting though, like how do you strike that balance? Like, because as much as I think Halo CE is fine, I do not want to return back to Halo CE multiplayer. Like that is an absolute cesspit to go and play in 2021.
Yeah, no, that does not feel good to hop in a game and then everyone just picks up a Magnum and pops each other for 20 minutes straight until the best Magnum player wins.
Yeah, it's the only Halo game I've played where power weapons are just not a necessity because you spawn with one.
Yeah.
I think speaking on Infinite though a little bit, I think it's got a really good balance between like Halo 3, Reach, and 5. I think it's done like a really good job, at least I suppose from looking in. Obviously we haven't played it yet, but like from this malleable sort of section, like obviously you've got your sprint, your slide, they're obviously core Halo 5, bit of Reach mechanics in there. You've got equipment from 3, weapon sandbox seems to be very akin to that of like a mix between 5 and 3, I want to say, because it's got obviously those some Forerunner weapons, but then it's got the classic like BR and all that. So I think they've done a good job, particularly. Now I say that in full confidence that when Halo 5 was looking at being released, I was like, oh my god, this looks amazing, and then it was nothing as to what it was. But I think they've been a lot more transparent this time with regards to what is coming. That said, I actually do quite like Halo 5's multiplayer, and I'm probably in a minority with that, but it was like my first proper online experience with Halo. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I don't think you're in a minority. I think Halo 5 is the smoothest first-person shooter on the market, honestly. It's just, I think that it's so heavily tainted by being accompanied by the Halo 5 campaign. Yeah. Additionally, it is a huge departure from the pre-Reach era and the post-Reach era up until 5. Like you have the jetpacking thing, I absolutely despise it, but it was a huge evolution, quote unquote, for the Halo franchise. Like it completely changed the dynamic of Halo multiplayer. And it doesn't look like they're bringing that back by the looks of it, does it?
No.
I haven't seen it yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they would have showed us by now. They would have showed us some jetpack kill or something like that, because they were going all out in that fashion during the trailer. I hope it doesn't come back, because that existing was what made me salty with Halo 5 multiplayer, because that is what made it such a large departure from what people loved about Halo 3, for example. You know what I mean? And if they switch how sprint works, where it's pressing down on the left stick like in Call of Duty, for example, instead of jamming, and maybe that's how it was in 5, I forget, but instead of having the press A like you do in Reach, that will also be a really good addition to the game, rather than having to use it using sprint as an ability. It really should just be a passive trait. So I hope that's the case in Halo Infinite as well.
I think Forerunner is kind of incorporated sprint in the sort of similar Call of Duty fashion of just like, it's not an ability, it's just a common thing that everyone has.
Yeah, but was it pressing A, or was it clicking down on the left stick by default?
Just clicking down on the left stick.
Wasn't that Halo 4 was clicking down the left stick? I think Reach, because it was a
Reach was since it was an ability, was like, well, it was left bumper for me, but yeah, it was an ability. But 4 and 5 have the clicking down on the left stick incorporated already.
Okay. So that's how I told you. All I do is play MCC now, so that's how I don't even remember.
I think one thing particular, I think obviously I hope they kind of get rid of boosters and like ground pounds and all that. I don't think it's particularly bad. I think it added some good verticality to how you play Halo 5, particularly if you were like one of those really pro experienced players. But I am excited to see what sort of verticality to levels the grapple hook will bring in. Because the way it looks at the moment, it feels like it's going to be similar to equipment in which you have to go and rush to pick it up. Not everyone's going to have it. and I don't know how it's going to work with how many uses you have for it, which I kind of am interested to see how that'll work, because will players prioritize saving a grapple for like, hijacking an air vehicle? Will they use it to get to a spot quicker? I think it opens up a lot of new options, as opposed to everyone rush for this point and hope your head bops out before someone else, which is something that I feel like Halo games, if you play them continuously, boils down to the same sort of repetitive formula, whereas I feel like the grapple hook opens at least an opportunity up for each game to be experienced in a different way.
Yeah, it opens the field up for a lot of variation, that's for sure.
Yeah. I wanna before we move on with talking about a bit about Halo Infinite, I want to bring it back quickly to Halo 3. Is there any particular mission or element of Halo 3 that you guys heavily dislike?
The arc for me, it just feels very, like the first half of it just feels very long. But then I guess as soon as I start to get up to like the second half where it's like take down, I'm gonna get ridiculed. Whatever the spider things are, that's when mission becomes fun. But like the first half of it just seems to just drag way too much for me.
Yeah. What about you, Garrett?
I'm looking at him right now. That way I can see a picture and it'll literally fill my memory up with everything. I honestly loved everything about Halo 3. Like, I liked the entire campaign all the way through. You guys brought up some good points about some negatives, but honestly, I've had such a good in 2007 in every way, shape, and form. I think I liked everything about every game I played that year. I can't think of anything off top that I didn't particularly care for. I guess the only thing that I can remember that was a negative memory, but also a positive, because overcoming it, similar to Cameron's story earlier, was the last, I don't know if this was technically the last level or the second to last level. It might have been Halo, but when you're playing on Legendary and you're in the snow area and you're trying to go inside that tower and get to 343 Guilty Spark, so that was miserable on Legendary mode. I can't tell you how many attempts I had with friends trying to get past all of those flood and go to those 2 points you have to reach with the Banshee. Just a huge pain in the ass. So, but also a good time, a really good time with a friend.
I think I'm maybe in the minority for a lot of these things, but I really dislike flood missions in Halo games. I always feel like, in comparison to fighting like the Covenant or whatnot, like there's a formula to them. Like particularly like if you look back as early as CE, like obviously you kill the elite, the grunts run away. If you kill the grunts, you have a better chance of killing the elite. Like you have those options, but the flood is just like constantly just running at you, and it feels like not lazy, because it's obviously they're meant to run, they're meant to be like that, but it feels like it gets boring if you're like playing it, as you say, like constant like mode. Like that's why I always find the latter parts of Halo games, particularly if they have flood involved, like Halo 2 has an awful problem with flood missions, because it's like repetitive corridors, lifts holding off the flood. Like it just feels boring to me. One mission I hate in Halo 3 is Cortana, and that's when you go to the Covenant crew, the High Charity, and it's just like on Legendary, oh my god, nobody wants to experience that.
So hard. No, actually, that's the exact level I hate. Thank you for bringing that up. I do hate a level of Halo, no matter if I'm with a friend, no matter what difficulty it's on. That level is not a fun level. It is a big pain in the ass, and it's also it's not kind on the eyes either. It reminds me of Scorn that's coming up for Xbox.
Oh yeah. Go on.
I would say with the flood, the difficulty does matter quite a bit, because I feel like if you're playing, I've done easy, normal. I've got like 20 achievements left in MCC. I've done easy to get the speed runs, and just running past and flood missions is no problem.
Yeah.
Legendary or heroic difficulty turns flood missions into such a slow, cruel mission. Whereas if I'm battling the Covenant, I know that I'm going to just plasma pistol something and headshot it and move on. Flood just seems like, holding out. And they're just always what feels like the longer missions.
Yeah. And those like really annoying, like it's fine on the first playthrough because I feel like it adds narratively, but when you're playing RP playthroughs, wherever Cortana or the Grave Mine pop up on your screen and they just slow you to a crawl, and it's like, especially on Cortana where you're just done with the missions, like, I just want to get this finished, like, please let me go. That I don't really particularly like on repeat playthroughs, and like, I gotta sound like such an annoying like toxic Halo fan, but I wish there was a button where you could turn that off, because like I know that particularly is always brought up.
Is the way around it.
What'd you say?
So some of the speedrunners have figured it out that if you do certain grenade jumps at the right time, you can move past those things.
But see, like, man, like, I don't have that skill.
I'm never gonna learn that. I'm never gonna learn that. It'd be way easier if there was an option instead of me having to do any sort of crouch or grenade jump to get past it.
I'm just saying there is an option.
It would probably take
whether
me
in the options menu.
It would take me even longer to learn the grenade jump than it would be to listen to that thing for 10 times in a row.
Sound exactly like Aptos. Just like, this is too difficult. We're not doing this. I'm like, no, you're getting dragged by the collar.
Hopefully there's a mod on PC that turns it off. I'll have a look at that afterwards, actually. I'm interested to see.
It'd be interesting.
But yeah, Halo Infinite. I think, what did we all think of, I suppose, firstly, the E3 showcase and then the extended one? Did we think there was enough shown? Do you think we should have seen more? Are we happy with what we got?
No, I'm not happy with it at all. I think Halo Infinite, I mean, obviously they didn't show it for a reason, and that reason's not positive. If they thought very highly of the campaign, what do you think they would have done? They would have shown us the campaign. And I hate saying anything negative about Xbox because I'm a huge fan, but I really do think that the fan base was kind of. I think that the showcase for Xbox was so good that the fan base didn't even think to criticize them for the fact that they did not show the Halo Infinite campaign, which says a lot about how well their showcase went, and the extended showcase, in my opinion, was jam-packed with value as well. But I digress again. I think they really let us down by not showing us the campaign, especially after the last time they showed us the campaign about a year ago or so, and of course there's a lot of negative reaction around the graphical fidelity, among other things. So you would have thought they would have tackled that head on this year. That said, what they did show us of the multiplayer, I was happy with. I will say that it didn't look super next gen looking. I did notice that it's obviously better looking than Halo 5, but maybe that's just because it was multiplayer. So we'll see when we get to see some of the campaign. That's another thing. If I would have gotten to see the campaign, I would have been able to make that compare that to the multiplayer graphical fidelity, and then made some more conclusions of my own as a consumer and as a part of the media. So not having the ability to do that was kind of upsetting. Nonetheless, I thought it overall was really cool. The part in the multiplayer part of the trailer where they showed us the guy throwing the plasma grenade, the plasma grenade at the sword to boost the sword over to his hand, grab it, and then shank a guy. It took me all the way back to I want to say Call of Duty Black Ops, where they had the trailer of the throwing knife for the first time. It kind of reminded me of that trailer way back then. It was super cool experience to see. I thought they really went all out with the Halo Infinite trailer. So, I mean, overall good. Definitely lacking on the campaign.
Yeah. What about you, Cameron?
First off, the one thing I want to get out of the way, the release date.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't inspire confidence at me at all.
Even if there was a beta date for like something I would have liked. Like any date for anything.
Yeah, I was really surprised that they didn't and we're going to have a beta in like 4 weeks from now or something along those lines.
Yeah.
They did announce that they were going to have the insider rings.
Yeah, I've watched,
if you signed up on the website.
But just on that, I've watched back like that reveal like 3 or 4 times at this stage, and like every time Joseph Staten comes out and he's like, I'm so happy to announce that multiplayer will be launching a campaign, and it's like you're expecting him to say like the first season's coming like right now to you or something, but he just says holiday 2021. You're like, well, I know this already, this has been established. Why are you acting as if this is new information to anyone?
Yeah, it's just marketing jargon. Yeah, I agree. Two things I forgot is I was really hoping for a multiplayer drop right then and there at E3, or at least a date for sometime this summer or late summer or autumn. So I will say, at least here in the United States. That said, that did not happen. So that was disappointing. I think one of two things surrounding the release date. I think there could be a chance they delay it based on what happens over the course of the next 3 months. Because even if it would piss off everyone, which it will, they're not going to have a Cyberpunk 2077 because they can afford for it to be delayed, especially with all the games they have coming. They made a big deal out of all the games they got in the pipeline. That said, they can probably afford a delay, even though they're going to get the worst, backlash ever. But it's way better to do that than to have a Cyberpunk 2077 on your hands, or to destroy the Halo franchise once and for all by releasing a subpar Halo. So you know what I mean? So
it kind of makes you wonder. Sorry, you finished that.
Yeah. So the other option is that they're kind of waiting to see the landscape of what games are releasing when over the holiday to have the most strategic release date. But I imagine they're going to shoot for the exact anniversary of Halo. So
yeah.
See, I feel the same way about like that anniversary of Halo, which was the 15th of November. But it just feels way too close to Forza Horizon 5 for me.
They're two totally different genres. Yeah. I mean, what is 1 week's difference? Let's say they put it out a week or two after Forza Horizon. What big of a difference does that make? It's Game Pass now. We're talking Netflix, right? Yeah. Release dates don't matter like they used to anymore.
Maybe it's just because it's my two favorite franchise a week apart. I know that I'm not going to finish Forza Horizon 5 in a week.
But the 15th is on a Monday, so and games usually come out on Tuesdays or Fridays now.
I think actually just drawing a similar comparison to obviously two games I was really excited for, Ori 8 and Mass Effect Remastered. Like they came out like within days apart, and they still both performed extremely well. And that's because for the most part, majority consumers aren't going to be overlapping with those genres. Like you're not going to have someone who's like, okay, I'm going to go play some like I suppose survival horror action, and then I'm going to go play this heavily RPG based sci-fi thriller. Whereas like I mean, like for you, Cameron, obviously, but I don't think anyone's going to be going like, oh, I can't wait to go drive in like the sandy dunes of Mexico and then go like kill aliens on a Halo ring.
No, but listen to this. Like this is the case, guys. All they care about, I mean, they care about game sales, but really the only reason they care about hardware and game sales is really just to keep revenue coming as they build Game Pass. Game Pass is end game. That's the future, right? They're trying to build they do have the Netflix of games. So think about this. The only reason they'd care about two games launching next to each other is why? So they don't eat up each other's physical or digital game sales. But if they're not worried about digital and physical game sales like they used to be, they're worried about subscriptions. Releasing two juggernaut games at the same time only makes proposed subscription that much more valuable, right? So it's actually better for the Game Pass method and to sell Game Pass for those to release even on the same day.
Yeah. I suppose, you can even draw, like, I suppose parallels, like, if you want to take the streaming approach, which, I don't know, for some reason...
I mean, that is the approach.
Yeah, but if you want to take the streaming approach with it, you can look at, like, say, Disney Plus, and at the moment they've got, like, Loki coming out on Wednesdays and The Bad Batch on Fridays. Like, people are still going to be indulging both of those shows, if they like both of them. It's not like they're going to need to make that decision. Now, games are kind of different because you need to invest a lot of time into them, but I feel like the thing with it as well, like, since they're both Xbox titles, they're going to be on Game Pass forever anyways. So if you want to go and say, oh, I'm going to go play Halo for like 100 plus hours or whatever, you can just come back to Forza then later. The only thing you'll really be missing is, I suppose, experiencing with everyone else. But like, I feel like you can get that experience in like the first 2 to 3 hours of any game, like experiencing it. I feel like it more so with Halo, because Forza really doesn't have a story. It's just kind of like driving around. So like nobody's going to be like, oh my god, don't spoil the ending of Forza Horizon 5 for me. So like I feel like Halo might take priority for a lot of people if they are looking at both those games. But I think even if there's a 2 week gap, right, and we say like end of November for like Halo Infinite, 2 weeks is plenty of time for anyone who wants to play Forza Horizon 5 to at least get that initial sort of like hours dived into it before Halo Infinite comes out. And like,
You know what?
yeah, go on.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I actually predict, and I'd put money on that they purposely release these games within 2 weeks of each other. You know, I'd go so far as to say that. Like, I really do think that. I wouldn't be surprised if they both release between the period of the 8th of November and the 19th of November. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Technically, Forza Horizon 5 can launch on the 5th because they have the early
when
access.
is it? Yeah, wait, they already have a date for Forza.
So
my bad. When is it?
9th is the official date, but 4 days early with the add-on pack.
Okay, yeah. So I would not be surprised if they launch. Well, then I didn't even think about the fact they had a release date already set for that, and that fell right in my timeline. Okay. So yeah, no, I definitely hold that prediction for sure.
The other thing I was going to come full circle with too is the marketing around the 6 and 6 that's going on too. Because we haven't seen a release date for Halo, it kind of makes me think, are they promoting all these other bigger games to soften the blow if there is another delay?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. That's why either way, E3, the showcases, all their marketing is going to be around Game Pass forever moving forward. That said, they went out of their way to show Starfield when Starfield isn't even coming out till 2022. That's totally out of character for anything Bethesda. Now, granted, they have been bought by Microsoft, but still, that's only been done like a couple, like, you can count on 2 fingers how often Bethesda announces a game that early before it is released. It's usually announced at E3, releases that fall. That's how they do it. That's the Bethesda way. So think about that. They show that. They show Redfall, which is another Bethesda published game. They're showing all these games that are nowhere near done. Like Contraband. What is Contraband? We have one article on it. They told us nothing about it there. I'm excited about it nonetheless. It's a heist related game. I'm just saying they're showing a lot of games that are really, really, really early in the pipeline. It makes sense to do that. That way you can get people hype and invested in Game Pass, even if Halo isn't a part of that offering within the year of 2021. It wouldn't be, and I believe if there is a delay, it's going to be a fat delay, like another 6 months to a year. So,
yeah.
I think as well, actually, like a lot of people kind of forget, like everyone's focusing on the 2021 schedule for Game Pass. Like 2022 has a load of really good stuff that's lined up, and we forget, like, even the ones that aren't mentioned. Like I know Deathloop is a 1-year exclusive on PlayStation, but that'll be coming out to Xbox next year, and that'll be within a sort of short proximity to when we look at Starfield, a couple of other games that are mentioned as well on that as well. So there's going to be a lot coming out. And I think the one good thing they've done with Game Pass specifically is that the games that are releasing close together don't, for the most part, genre overlap. So like in August, you'll have Hades come out, and then like next week or the week after, you'll have 12 minutes. And there's not going to be huge overlap with those things. So they are appeasing every audience, which is a good thing. So like you'll have, maybe, say if you're only like an action heavy gamer, like maybe you're not too worried about if it's first person or third person, you'll have at least a game a month to kind of come and have a look at. And the same for like RPG fans or different other bits as well, which I'm really interested to see how it plays out, because I think as good as Xbox has been, like it's been growing like very well. I think when it first started, it was kind of a culmination of like kind of a lot of mediocre games, I want to say. It's now got sort of these heavy hitter titles that are consistently coming in, and now we're kind of starting to see it turn into, like with Netflix, where they used to just get like a load of really good films in, they're now starting to produce their own really good originals that'll last a lot longer and will probably be more successful than if they were to bring in some third-party publisher to kind of put stuff on Game Pass day one. Like Back 4 Blood is amazing to have on Game Pass, but like it speaks volumes that the games that people are talking about coming to Game Pass are like Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5, 12 minutes, Starfield. Like these are all, I'm not sure if 12 minutes is if it's an exclusive to Xbox, is it?
I think it's part of Idit Xbox, and I know the Idit Xbox program, there's a lot of variables with those studios. Lots of the times you'll see an Idit Xbox game be partly funded by Xbox, or Xbox helps market it, like they're marketing 12 Minutes, for example. In exchange for that deal, it'll stay exclusive to the platform for a period of time, and then it will go to other platforms later on. That's usually the case.
Yeah.
Xbox One, Series X, S, Microsoft Windows, and Steam.
Yeah, so it is for the most part, you know, like obviously Microsoft are going to have PC, Xbox exclusives. There's going to be overlap there. So like that's unreal. I think it's the first time in Xbox's life cycle that we've had so many highly anticipated games coming day one to Game Pass for I suppose the foreseeable future. And whenever people talk about Game Pass, it's always like, well, the only argument I ever hear against it is like, well, it's not profitable for Microsoft. They're not making any money. Like, we don't know that. So there's
there's no reason to say that. I have no idea what they're talking about. It has over, I want to say, I could have the numbers wrong, but even if I'm wrong, I'm wrong by a minute number. I want to say they have almost 30 million subscribers on Xbox Game Pass. Yeah. Each one, let's say they're only paying, what's the cheapest? Is it $5 or $10 a month?
I think, for like
just
Game Pass.
$10. Let me just do this real quick. That way I can put all that to rest real fast, because I've done this before. Let's say they're all only paying $10, which I know so many people are using Ultimate. I'd say that the amount of Ultimate users has to be at least 33%. That said, $10 times 25 million, let's be very conservative here, is $250 million a month.
Yeah, no, it's obvious. Yeah, it's obvious that they're making money back from it, and people are citing like, oh, but like Xbox are going out and buying these big developers. Like, and I love the argument. It's like, oh, they spent 7.5 billion on Bethesda. It's like, yeah, but this is Microsoft. They dropped, I think, casually 10 billion on LinkedIn. Like, I don't think money is the problem for them for the most part. Like, it's, I think
I was gonna say, going back to how much people were paying a month too. It's like there's reports of people that do have Game Pass have spent, I think it was like 40% more.
Yeah,
on
because
games.
they're getting those reductions just before it leaves Game Pass.
No, they're buying the games.
Yeah.
Not only that, they're getting the DLC for games they would have never bought to begin with. Not to mention the microtransactions within those games. But let's say they didn't buy any of that. $250 million a month. Times that by 12. Now you have what, 3-point-something billion dollars? I don't know. My calculator won't show a number that big. It's such a big number that my calculator literally won't tell me, okay? It's a ridiculous amount of money. Bethesda costs $7.5 billion. And of course, there's overhead costs that you have to take into account. We don't know what that overhead cost is, but Bethesda is $7.5 billion. And right now we're at like the very beginning stages of Game Pass taking off, and they're making $3 billion or more off of it a year. I mean, paying off Bethesda and all these other studio acquisitions, all the marketing investments and everything. Yeah, it's not profitable right now. Most businesses aren't profitable for the first 3 to 5 years. This is year 4 of Game Pass. And this is like one of the biggest media revolutions that's ever existed. I mean, there's more money in video game industry than movies, TVs, and sports combined. I mean, so them building the biggest subscription service for the biggest entertainment sector is a huge deal. I mean, it's totally going to pay off. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. We're talking about one of we're talking about the number 1 or number 2 most cash-rich company on the planet. Yeah. Like, I mean, Microsoft is enormous.
But even like, let's just say for a second that like, let's entertain the idea that for some reason Game Pass isn't profitable in the long term. Why would you care? Like, you're not Bill Gates. Like, it's not going to affect you. Like, it's good. It's a win-win for the consumer either way. Like, I don't understand why people are so worried about whether like this big company is making money. It's like, they will worry about that. Don't be like using that as a big excuse.
No, that's an extremely good point.
Oh, you can say, Cameron?
Like, even there's a win for everybody, even on a marketing perspective for these smaller indie titles. Yeah, actually getting their name out there too.
Yeah, like we were talking about like earlier, like the Falconeer, like, and even if you look at the games from Raw Fury, who have just released Backbone on Game Pass PC, and they're sort of the publishing company for West of Dead, and which just recently left Game Pass along with Nightcall as well. One of the key devs for Nightcall was like, without Game Pass, like this game, as like Game Pass has done so much for it, like spreading it to this new audience. And every indie dev, I can guarantee you, if you ask them how good is Game Pass for your game, they will say it's fantastic because it gives you such a huge audience to play with. Even if people don't like it, you'll find a lot of people that will like it that would have never found the game otherwise. And it's such a huge incentive for indie devs. Not only because I like, before, indie devs were like, and I mentioned this to you and Matt, Cameron, before, like when you guys were on the podcast last time, like indie devs had such a little platform on consoles. I know PlayStation have started putting a lot into indie devs, and Microsoft are starting to do the same as well. But with that, Game Pass has made it so easy for anyone to just pick up an indie title. Not only that, but incentivized them to pick up indie titles. Like I know I've gone and like I've been calling that they should have on like Game Pass like specific a specific filter for different like studio levels. So like indie, AA, AAA. I'd love if that was a system on Game Pass. But like the idea, like it's just such a brilliant feature. Like I don't think I can like continue saying how good it is without like sounding extremely repetitive. But like for indie devs, it has to be like up there with some of the best stuff anyone could ever look for. Because the Falconeer is a testament to that. Like it came out as a launch title on the Xbox Series X. Well, it was initially launched in October, but launched, updated and relaunched with Xbox Series X, and then I want to say this as a conservative estimate that not so many people knew about the Falconeer until it came to Game Pass, and now it's on Game Pass and people have seen how good of a game it is. Now, obviously it stands in its own testament. It was nominated for a BAFTA as well, so it's obviously a good game. But like, it just shows that like it is very much setting the precedent of the sort of audience you can attract through Game Pass as an indie dev. And I feel like for the most part, outside of Steam, there was nowhere really for indie devs to go before something like this. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the future, and I'm particularly excited to see where, like, we saw the indie showcase this year and all the demos coming out. Like, I love demos. I think it's one of the facets of games that have kind of started to die down a little bit in recent years. So I'm happy to see them kind of making a resurgence in the indie scene. Like, and we saw it with RE8 as well. Like, that was an unreal marketing strategy. Like, I'm just really excited to see what the future of it holds, particularly for indie devs, but for games as a whole as well.
Yeah, no, it's going to be increasingly good for indie developers. I will say one thing though, Xbox has been heavily invested in the indie scene for a long time, way before PlayStation was. It's nothing new for them. And now it actually kind of makes sense why they invested all that time. I mean, one, it's the right thing to do, but they're a business, so I doubt they care too much about, you know, what the right thing to do is. It's all about making the consumers happy for the end goal of, you know, making more money. And that's fine, because that's what businesses are supposed to do. That said, I always wondered why Xbox invested so much in the indie community the past like decade with it at Xbox. And then when Game Pass came around, it all kind of makes sense that they wanted to load that thing up with games from indie developers until they could get the heavy hitters in there. And so it all kind of came full circle recently with Game Pass taking off.
Yeah, I suppose we're getting late into the episode now. I want to talk a little bit about UXP, Garrett. I think for clarity's sake as well, I should probably mention that both myself and Cameron are also involved with UXP now, not to the same level as you, Garrett, but we have a load of questions to ask, I suppose, about it. If you want to maybe give people who are listening who haven't heard of it a breakdown of what exactly is UXP.
Yeah, I'll give them the elevator pitch. So the UXP, which is called the Unnamed Xbox Project right now, it will soon have its actual name and branding and logo attached to it here within the next week and a half. That said, the UXP is a news and media brand that is dedicated to providing its target audience, gamers and Xbox fans, Xbox-centric news, whilst also covering news within the gaming industry as a whole, whether, you know, if it is notable. That said, right now we're building a team that can handle putting out news on Twitch, YouTube, a variety of podcasts, social media platforms, and namely articles on our website. So think of it as a combination of an IGN that only covers Xbox related news and Kind of Funny that has your video and audio content to go along with it, but covering mostly Xbox news rather than a variety of platforms. And so right now, what we're trying to focus on is building a team of talented individuals, writers, videographers, video editors, podcasters, audio professionals, web designers, editors, and podcasters and live streamers. So right now, that's kind of who we're looking for, who we're recruiting. It all started with the tweet that I put out on May 25th. I thought like 3 or 4 people would like it because I really didn't have any friends in the video game industry. I've just been an observer for my whole life now from the outside looking in. And then a tweet that I thought might get 3 or 4 likes led to me getting over 4 million people seeing my tweets over the past, what is it? 24 days. In 24 days, 4 million people have seen my tweets, and over 150,000 people have visited my Twitter profile, all because of this project, this idea that I announced about creating an Xbox-centric news brand. So I think we're at a team with you two wonderful people involved and included in this number. I think we're at about just under 40 team members overall. Of course, right now everyone's volunteer. This is very indie. This is very grassroots. And of course, we all have the goal of building up a very big user base, a big audience, and hopefully being able to monetize that. That way we can provide an even better platform for the creators involved, like Cameron on podcasting and you on the writing and editing squad, Odhrán. Hopefully we can provide an even better platform later on by monetizing the brand. Of course, for a news station, it's all about getting money from advertisers and sponsorships. So we got to have people who are paying attention to us before we can make that money. And luckily, we're filled with a lot of very talented, very well-known personalities throughout the Xbox and gaming industry as a whole, who have been kind enough and more than anything, passionate enough about the Xbox community to get involved, kind of see the vision the same way I do, more or less, and want to volunteer to build this thing up into something reputable and authoritative within the industry.
What's a quick question? Where did the idea or the drive to kind of make this project come from? Like, was it just kind of lockdown fatigue? You wanted something to do, or was it something you had planned for a while?
Yeah, so I've been a gamer since I was 5. I've been an Xbox gamer since my 13th birthday, when I got my 360, which came out the day before my birthday, turning 13. And I have always wanted, since probably about a year after I started playing Xbox 360, I had started telling myself around the age of 14, I started telling myself I wanted to be a video game journalist. However, I wasn't very good at school. And so I was under the impression until I got older that you had to get a college degree to do most things, which is somewhat the case, but also not the case. Depends on who you ask. And who you're trying to work for. That said, I kind of put that dream to the wayside as I grew up and became a young adult and became an entrepreneur. I started a couple companies. They worked out. Now I have a lot more freedom on my hands. I do just well enough at the companies that I own that I'm able to take time off of working and focus on a project that I'm even more passionate about. While I love business and I love marketing, which is my day job and my company I own, that's outside of the gaming community. I came up with this idea probably a few years ago with my COO at Vi Media. His name's Alex Dietrich, and he was like, "Garrett, dude, we already have like 3 companies. You need to not do this." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll just put a post on Twitter and let people know. That way, whenever we do want to do it, like at least I have the idea out there." And then within 48 hours, like thousands and thousands of people had seen it, and hundreds of people were reaching out. And then my buddy Alex was like, "Man, fuck you for that," because now we have another company on our hands. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm sorry, but you know what we got to do. And so then we got to work, and then we met you guys and so many other passionate community members out here in the Xbox community. And we're past the point of no return, and we're in it to win it, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. And I can't wait to start, giving back to the community that's been so nice to me over the past month.
Oh, poor Alex, man. It's justice for Alex.
Yeah. Poor son of a bitch. F in the chat.
The one thing I want to ask, because I saw recently, obviously you put up a tweet surrounding the whole UXP sort of shebang and whatnot. You were kind of mentioning that obviously over 800 people have reached out, and you know, obviously we can only have such a handful of a team at the current point in time. But you also mentioned that there would be an opportunity for people to get involved through the website with their own account to kind of write articles, is it, or publish them? What's the sort of story behind that?
Yeah, so quite literally the same way, like you're going to be on the writing and editing squad as an official staff member, right, Odhrán? So that being said, you're going to be able to write articles on our WordPress website, push them out, and it's going to be notated that you're an official staff member at the UXP or whatever it ends up, you know, being named. We know the name, but the public cannot know at this time. It's all part of our marketing plan of mystery. That said, so you'd be an official staff member. That would be distinguished on your profile and on every article you wrote. But that, besides that fact and the fact that your articles will be indexed by Google, those are the only two differences between an article you put out and an article someone else would be able to put out. And so basically what we're building out is the ability for anyone that's within the Xbox or gaming community to build a login, a username, password, attach an email, just like any other website, log in and actually put out an article that it would go out to the rest of the community from our website, just like one of our official writers or editors at the UXP, which I think is huge because lots of people believe, and I agree with them, that the video game industry can be pretty cutthroat. Yeah, it can be very gatekeepy. It's not very inclusive. It's very male dominated for the most part. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of diversity, although that is getting better over time. So our goal is basically to enable gamers like ourselves to have the opportunity to, at the very least, build a portfolio of their work on a website that has a reputation within the industry, which is something I hope we have after we launch. So that said, the idea is really just providing the opportunity for writers all over the world who are interested in video games to be able to go on the website, create a profile, put out an article, put out a review, put out a preview, put out an opinion piece, a list piece, whatever the case may be, and have it be their own and have their voice be heard by our entire audience at the UXP. So that's a very big thing for me, and I'm very excited to see how that is received. I imagine a lot of people will be writing articles on the UXP website after we launch. I think it's going to be a sight to behold for sure.
Yeah, just actually on that as well, and I have an interesting question about it, just to kind of run by you as well. With regards to, like, obviously I'm not sure how far down the line you are with implementing this idea, but like, obviously you mentioned that anyone will be able to write an article and put it on UXP. Is there, I suppose, provisions in place for if someone writes something particularly egregious or offensive and it kind of shouldn't really be on there?
So we're gonna have a terms of service. We're gonna have rules in place, and you know, for some of the smaller violations, it'll be kind of like a 3 strikes you're out type deal. But for certain things, obviously, it's going to be, you know, the ban hammer right off the bat. You're going to get hit with the gravity hammer, and you're going to be off our fucking website. So that said, it is all about enabling people, but at the same time, we don't want to enable hate. We don't want to enable violence. We don't want to enable bigotry. We don't want to enable people that are council warring or hating on other council platforms with no good reasoning, at least. So this is all about being able to enable these writers that are coming on our website, creating a profile and writing. It's about enabling them, not enabling them to voice nonsense on the internet. It's enabling them to gain experience, enabling them for their voice to be heard. And if they're trying to put out negative signals, I mean, UXP is not going to be a place to do that.
I suppose we're coming near to the end of the show. This is the point where I throw it over to you guys. I might go to Cameron first because I feel like, Garrett, you've got loads of stuff that you talked about. Kind of where can people sort of find you online, whether it be on social media, different platforms and that? Cameron? Yeah.
So you can find me on Twitter under the handle Shadowless Edge. No space in that. You can find me on TA and Xbox under Shadowless Edge. Sorry, Shadowless Edge with the space. Other than that, I also am the chief admin for the Xbox Achievement community on Facebook, and I run the Real Gamerscore podcast every Friday night at 6:30 p.m. AEST. Sorry, Australian Eastern Standard Time or Daylight Savings Time, whatever we're trying to falls under. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And Garrett, yeah, I know you've talked a lot about UXP and all that, but where can people find you if they want to keep up to date with the project or anything else you might be working on?
I mean, I'm on every social media platform out there, but honestly, if you want to hear anything of somewhat value, depending on what you think value is, please just follow me on Twitter at Garrett E, as in Edward, Atkins, Garrett E. Atkins on Twitter.
Perfect. Well, thanks you so much for the both of you for joining me this week. Next week, Connor will be back and we will be taking a look at Psychonauts. Obviously, the second one was announced, so we have to go back and play the first one, which I believe Mike really wants you to play, Garrett, so maybe get on that as soon as possible.
Will do.
But with that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We will see you all next Thursday at the usual time, in brackets, internet depending. But thanks a million, guys, and we'll see you all then.